Hello, and welcome back to New You Wow Going Places podcast, where we celebrate epic breakthroughs and connections in the community. We are here to help you face any anxiety and pressure you might be feeling in the pandemic. And today we are honored to be joined by Latrina Hicks. She's right in Hawthorne, Florida, outside of Gainesville. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Wonderful. And we know that as a busy married mother of three who is actually dealing with a home based baking business for over 10 years, you've got a tremendous amount on your plate. So it means so much that you've come through and graced us with your presence. And we always start with a little
Thank
bit of an
you.
icebreaker. So the first question is,
Okay.
can you share something with the audience that most people do not know about you? A little tidbit, a hidden nugget.
I would say I seem outgoing and outspoken, but I actually am really shy and reserved. So,
That's a common trend these days. But what's beautiful about it is when you can blend the best of both worlds and have
hmm
that piece where you connect to people, but then you just need a
yeah,
little bit of time to open and spread the wings. That's nice. That's a
yeah.
beautiful
mm,
skill set.
Thank
You've
you.
mentioned that life being what it is these days, you've had to overcome some tremendous roadblocks. Can you share specifically what some of those might have been and what helped you to succeed in overcoming them?
I had a really bad childhood, and my mom was a really young teenager when she had us, so she didn't. She was a kid herself, so raising children was not something that she was prepared for, and so it caused us as children to have some struggles and go through a lot of things that we otherwise shouldn't have gone through. But ultimately, being able to learn from my mistakes, I got had kids, got married, got in church, and ultimately was able to deal with my issues from my childhood and turn it all around pretty much. And now I am able to tell somebody else that no matter what you've gone through before, your God is able to bring you out of that and turn your test into a testimony.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's tremendous. And I love the fact that you mentioned a lot of times when we're trying to think about obstacles and we're looking at what have I had to overcome, you think recent and you only think about the
hmm
now. But like you
Yeah,
mentioned, what happened in our childhood is it's the foundation of who we are.
yeah,
And so it seems,
yeah.
what do you think that some people are running away from facing that past, or they're trying to bury it so deep they don't think about it and they
Mhm.
never get past the roadblock in the first
Yes.
place? Yeah.
I
So
struggled for years with carrying that baggage from my childhood. So once I was able to deal with that, um I was able to be a better person to myself.
I'm glad you make that point. We often hear it said that in relationships, it's all about giving, caring, loving, and that's true. But how can we really love someone else if we don't love ourselves first?
Right. Right.
And it almost feels like nowadays as women, there is so much pressure to live up to a certain image, or because we're having to carry these large burdens that outweigh what our ancestors had to carry. There's a question of give, 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 but how can you give if your
Mhm.
cup is empty? So I think
Right.
you are so deserving of kudos that you didn't get
Thank
stunted
you.
on the things that happened yesterday and you faced them
Thank you.
and you're standing strong. So it's
Thank
obviously a
you.
big benefit to
Oh,
your family now because how can you be there in the present when you're stuck in the past? So,
right.
beautiful, very, very nice. And, we're also
Thank you.
curious. what do you think serves as your primary motivation to keep going? Because even now, we're facing a lot of life handing us lemons. So, how do you keep it moving? How do you keep going forward when you're having those rough days?
So I've learned, and I teach this to my children, the world doesn't stop turning because you're standing still. So you have to find some kind of strength from the inside to keep going. You have to put one foot in the other and push forward, no matter how labored those steps are. You have to keep going because ultimately there's somebody depending on you to keep going, and you can't give up, because if you do, then they would.
Profound. I mean, definitely the words of a mother. Because you're so
Yes.
right. I mean, that's what you live day in and day out. You know that someone is depending on you. But the fact that you're able to instill that in your children, and what are the ages of your children?
So my youngest is 12. He'll be 13 this year. My daughter just turned 15, and my oldest son will be 17 this year.
So the fact that you have a triple hitter where you're going to have three teenagers in the house, but you're
Yes.
getting them to understand early on in life these lessons that are going to stick with them for life, that you never know who's watching. Like you
Right.
never know whose next step is dependent on what you do. And so you always got to strive to do your very best, because when you lift, the others around you can rise with you. So I think that's great.
Absolutely.
That is
Yes.
wonderful. Now, the pandemic has forced more people than ever to face unprecedented levels of anxiety. So,
Mhm.
how do you cope with that emotion that washes in on us? Sometimes very unexpected. How do you face that? And what do you do for the family to make sure that any frowns are turned upside down?
Um, just keeping a positive attitude, praying about everything, no matter what it is the pinnacle of everything for us. Because if you don't have a prayer life, if you don't have a relationship with God, then when things like the pandemic happen, you won't know how to deal with them. But having a relationship with God, you have that peace to, in spite of what comes, in spite of what happens, you'll be okay, because ultimately you understand um, that He has everything in His hands. It's in His control, and it'll be okay ultimately.
That's great. Yeah. And, it makes me think of the Zora Neale Hurston title, Their Eyes Were Watching God. The element of when you're looking only at the problem, you kind of
Hmm.
overlook the fact that there's someone bigger than us that can see to it
Right.
that you're going to make it through. And,
Yes.
that reminder is so vital too when you think about the fact that none of us knew this was coming.
Right.
And some have done a much better job than others of coping. But at the end of the day, it comes down to being centered and realizing the same way it wasn't here, it's going to be on its way out. And
Hmm.
so, were you just checking on your cakes?
Hmm.
Oh, how they looking?
Looking good.
Very nice. Very nice. But yeah, it's tremendous that you're able to realize what we're facing right now doesn't define us in its entirety. And I think that's what happens is some people get
Right.
very caught up in, it's the trial, the test. How are we going to get past it? And then that old enemy doubt. When you start thinking that
Yes.
you can't, well, my goodness, you set yourself up to be stuck.
Hmm. Right.
Another question I have for you is because
Hmm.
your baking isn't the only thing you do. What's your other source of income that you're doing to
Uh-huh.
help support the family?
I am a financial counselor with the University of Florida Ophthalmology Department, or the eye clinic.
Very, very nice. And so the connections that you're able to have with different ones in the community, you were just explaining to me that you have that wonderful feeling of knowing that you're helping alleviate the worry and the stress from others. Do you have any really profound examples of that stand out for you?
Give me just a second.
Take your
My tape
time. You're
slipped
good.
off the. All right, there we go. All right, I'm back. So sorry.
You're
All right,
okay.
so, all right. So I had a patient who had an eye injury at work and was not able to pay for the visit. The visits are $300 just to check in.
Oh, wow.
And then that's not including any testing or procedures that are performed during the visit, any surgeries or anything like that. So this person really needed to be seen. Sight could be lost and was concerned about whether he could afford coming to the appointment versus whether he should just not worry about it and could possibly lose his sight.
Oh, my goodness.
And giving him the ability to apply for financial assistance to for him not to have to worry about paying anything, but just worry about getting to his appointment to save his sight was such a tremendous feeling that I was able to help him. And because your sight is everything, and so I personally know that because after having brain surgery in 2015, I've lost most of my peripheral vision. So, and I have nerve damage on my right side. So I know the importance of maintaining your sight and how it's so easy for something that is so vital to you to be taken away from you.
I can imagine. Wow. So the surgery that you referenced, that must have been quite unexpected. Was this something that you've been dealing with health-wise for a while, or did it just come out of nowhere?
So I started having headaches for weeks and months at a time.
Oh, my.
And I went to doctor after doctor. Nobody could figure out what was going on. They would just throw medicine at it. Oh, do this, oh, do that, but nothing helped. I moved here to Gainesville, to Hawthorne, and I was working at a private practice in Gainesville. And we got a new machine. It's called the OCT. It takes topography of the back of the eye.
Okay.
And we were being guinea pigs. They were teaching us how to use it, and I was the guinea pig that day. And the guy, the instructor, took images of my eye, and when he said, "Oh my God, have you seen the back of your eyes?" And I said, "No." He called the doctor that I worked for in, and he was like, "Her optic nerves are severely swollen.
Oh,
you need
no.
to do something to help her." And so my doctor that I worked for referred me to an ophthalmologist. And from there we found out that there was too much fluid around my brain. And it was causing me to lose my sight, causing nerve damage and brain damage pretty much. And I declined pretty quickly. From there, the pressure around your brain is supposed to be no more than like in the teens, 16, 17, but mine was almost 42.
Oh, my goodness.
So I was in a really bad place. I had to have several spinal taps, and the pressure would just build back up. And ultimately, they decided that surgery was the only option to save my sight and to save me, basically. So.
Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to share this video and like, comment, and subscribe. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at NewYouWell. Until next time, stand tall in your power and remember, your belief in yourself is your superpower.